That August 10th date is coming, and that's a final date. It's not going to be extended. As I said, the original Tier 3 members and the revised, everybody hired prior to April 1st of this year was in Tier 3, paying 3% into their pension. 3% of everything you earn. If you join the Tier 3 enhanced, it's going up 1%. 1% to 4%, a total of 4%. People tell me they're going to raise it to 6%. Well, I'll tell you what the law is. The law is every 3 years the city actuary does an assessment of the fund and can raise it. The maximum they could raise it is a total of 6% total. That's the 3% you're currently paying and 3 additional percent. I've spoken to members who think they can raise it 6% above what you're paying now. No. The most it could ever be is 3% above what you're paying now for a total of 6%. I ran the pension fund for almost 9 years. I've been involved with pensions with the PBA for almost 18. That's over a quarter of a century. I honestly don't see it happening, that they're going to raise it. The actuary just can't say, oh, ha, 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 I think I'm going to raise it. No. The actuary has to show where we are using it at such a rate where she has to increase it. God forbid there's a terrorist attack, they unleash some chemical weapon in Midtown, and thousands of our members come down with some illness and go out on 3/4. You know what? They're going to raise it. Yes, they're going to raise it. But I don't see that happening. They got to prove. They have to prove where, she has to prove where she was wrong when she said it was 1%. She said it was 1%. Now she has to raise it. Now she has to say, no, it's more than 1%. And Pat Lynch isn't taking her for her word. We have 2 actuaries that work for the PBA. We get their data all the time to assess what she is doing on an ongoing basis. If she raises it, right, and our actuaries say this is not right, believe me, we will be right in court with an Article 78. We will sue the shit out of them. Okay? I mean, so you're asking these people that are going around, oh, it's definitely going to be 6%. It's only my opinion. I would be shocked if it's 6%, if it goes up. It could happen. I can't say it won't. I can't say it won't, but our experience just doesn't justify it going up. We don't, 4 out of 5, or even maybe 5 out of 6 of our members go out on service. We're not going out on disabilities. We're not the fire department. So can it go up? If you opt in, it's going to go up to 4%. If you made $100,000 a year, that 1% increase is an additional $38 a check. $38 a check, okay? If you opt in, if you opt in, your pension will be based on a 5-year average. Now, anybody hired since April 1st, 2012 already has their pension based on a 5-year average. What about the original group whose pension is based on the 3-year average? If you go out on the 3/4 pension, it's based on a 5-year average. If you retire for service, it's still based on a 3-year average. You're not hurting yourself. You're not getting a 5-year average if you had a 3-year average and you go out for service. You retain the 3-year average. If you don't opt in, your pension will be 50% of the final average salary, whether it be the 3-year or the 5-year, minus half of your Social Security attributed to your city earnings at age 62, or earlier, if you're hurt bad enough where you receive Social Security disability. Let's say you're 30 years old and you start receiving Social Security disability, they will start reducing your pension, your 50%, by half of your Social Security disability when you start receiving it at age 30, or whatever age you receive it. So it's 50% minus half of your Social Security. If you opt in, instead of 50%, it's 75%. Okay? And there is no Social Security offset. If you get to 3/4, there is no Social Security offset. Okay? Both of them, whether you don't opt in or you opt in, that amount is tax-free. Those are tax-free pensions. All right? So your pension, if you don't opt in, is 50% minus half of your Social Security. If you do opt in, it's 75% with no Social Security offset. The escalator, this is now the good thing. If you opt in, there's no Social Security offset. A negative, I'm giving the whole story here. If you opt in and you get the 3/4, you get the disability pension, you do not get the escalator, you get the COLA, cost of living adjustment, like any Tier 1 or Tier 2 members, which isn't as good. I'll tell you right now, it isn't as good. The current COLA, you know, these things change, is anywhere for Tier 2 members, anywhere from $180 a year to $540 a year, based on the Consumer Price Index. Escalator could be more. It could be more. Probably would be. Okay? So, but you don't have the Social Security offset. And you're getting a much bigger pension at 75%. And another very important item, if you opt in, is the presumption bills. You are not covered currently by any of the presumption bills. What are the presumption bills? Heart bill, stroke bill, infectious diseases, which is AIDS, Hep C, tuberculosis. It's assumed that it was caused by the job. You know, and it doesn't have to be while you're working. It's assumed it was caused by the job. I'm a Met fan. I go home tonight, they're playing late. You know, I watch the game. I get the big one. You know, if I'm still on, it's covered. I'm retired. That's covered. It doesn't have to be while you're working. As a matter of fact, we've had one, God bless his soul, we've had one Tier 3 member who died of a heart attack. His spouse, his widow, is receiving she received 3 years' salary. I spoke earlier about the ordinary death benefit. That was an ordinary death. He died of a heart attack. No presumption. If this bill would have been passed prior to his death and he would have signed up for the Tier 3 enhanced, his wife, his widow, would be receiving a full salary, tax-free pension for the rest of her life. It's all part of the Tier 3 enhanced. It's all part of the Tier 3 enhanced. You don't go in, you don't have it. You go in, you do have it. All right? So besides the bigger pension, you don't have the Social Security offset, right? You get the smaller COLA instead of the escalator. You pick up the presumptions. You pick up the presumptions. I'll just quickly say the ordinary disability retirement, what I mentioned before, what the city tries to downgrade your disability to, if the paperwork, as Joe said, isn't filled out properly, or you get inherited home, off-duty car accident, whatever. If you don't opt in, it's 1/3 of your salary or 2% a year. In order for the 2%, it's the greater of. In order for the 2% a year to be greater than the 1/3, you need at least 17 years on. Minus half of your Social Security disability. If you opt in, it's still 1/3 or the 2% with no Social Security offset. That's the ordinary disability. A big negative, well, when I spoke a month ago, one of the negatives was that, and this had to do not with the enhanced bill, with Tier 3 in general. Any member, Tier 3 member, once you had 22 years, if you stayed till 25 and you got hurt, you were not covered for you could not file for a disability. That was ridiculous. That's stupid. You know, Joe and I were in a radio car together. I have 23 years, he has 21 years, he's driving, he fucks up, he gets us into a car accident. You know, we're both disabled. He can get, because he has 21 years, he can get 75%. He can put him for and I can't, I have to go out on a service pension. That's what the law was. It's been corrected, it's signed by the governor. The other thing, which was big a month ago, and I mentioned it, the safeguards. A month ago, and this had nothing to do with the Tier 3 enhanced, this was Tier 3. Whether you went in or not, if you got a job, because you couldn't afford to support your family, they were going to stop your pension and your benefits forever. We did away with that. That's done, signed by the governor. Pension changes take time. We're making progress. We're making progress. There's a rumor, I've gotten calls, people are telling me, and don't listen to these idiots in the back of the station houses, that you lose something with the variable supplement. I'm going to talk about the variable a little later. It's a wonderful benefit, $12,000 a year. There's a rumor out there, if you go into the enhanced, you're not going to get, if you go out for service, you're not going to get the variable supplement or a lesser variable supplement. That's bullshit. That's bullshit, okay? I said I was a trainee from 68 until 71. When I turned 21, there was a job freeze. The only people the city were hiring were trainees who reached their 21st birthday. In the early 80s, there was a lawsuit by a group that said they were discriminated against to become trainees, and because of that, they weren't hired as police officers. They had to wait until the freeze was over. The group had over 200 members. They were successful. They won. The average payout was $40,000. That's a lot more than $40,000 today. Back in the 70s, we were making about $15,000 a year, so you're talking close to 3 years' salary. Some got more, some got less. Out of over 200 members that received this payment, they had 2 years to make the pension contribution to get pension credit for that time. The court, the judgment allowed them pension credit, but they had to pay their normal pension contributions that they would have. I'd say on an average they received $40,000, they had to pay the pension fund $2,000. It wasn't like they didn't have it, they were given $40,000, go write a check to the pension fund for $2,000 and have pension credit for it. More than half of the litigants did not pay for the pension time. Now it's the 1990s, I'm in charge of the pension fund. A month didn't go by where someone would come in and he's telling me they won't let me retire. Well, why won't they let me retire? He said, I got 20 years, they won't let me retire. When I pulled his record, he said he was one of the litigants. You never paid the pension contributions. Their attorney and the pension fund on multiple occasions sent them letters telling them they had to pay, and this is the deadline. That's what the court said. You know, I pulled a folder, they didn't pay. Well, let me pay now. You can't pay now. It's too late. There's no law. There was no law to allow it. So they had to stay an additional 3 years because they missed the deadline. Because they missed the deadline. As of this morning, 4,700 Tier 3 members have filed for the enhanced. 7,766 have not filed. 7,766. This is your chance. This is your opportunity. If you make what you consider an educated decision, you know what? It's not worth it. I don't want to spend $38 a check. I have no problem with that. We're all grown-ups. You made a decision. I know Chris and I are going to be getting phone calls next year, the year after that, with people who were hurt and they didn't opt in. But nobody told me. Please, this is your opportunity. You have to act now. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Just don't complain about it. Don't say you weren't told. We're going to put this video out there. Tell your friends. Tell them to look at it. Tell them to make their own educated decision. If they don't want it, fine. If it was me, I would opt in. Pat Lynch had his 2 sons opt in. If you were my son or daughter, I'd make sure you opted in. Okay? You gotta make the call. Do what's right for you. Do what's right for your family. With that, I'm going to put you on a 10-minute, it's now 7:30. 7:45, we'll be back. We have about another 45 minutes to go, just so you know. We'll be done by about 8:30. So please be back in your seats by 7:45. Thank you.